I bet you thought I forgot that I missed day 5 of VLOGMAS. Well, I did not, in fact, forget, and I have a fun bonus project for you. I made super adorable baby aprons for the boys to wear on Christmas morning, and I'm going to share the making of those aprons with you. Now, let me say, these were one, super cheap. I bought 1 yard rectangles of fabric at Walmart. Two, super quick. I made both aprons in a night. And three, so festive. Which, I mean, what else could you possibly ask for? Anyway, if you want to see how I made these adorable holiday aprons for my baby boys, just keep watching. The first step is cutting the fabric. Now, as I previously mentioned, I bought 1 yard pieces of prepackaged fabric at Walmart. This fabric does explicitly state do not pre-wash, which is why you see me just taking it out of the packaging here and immediately cutting into it. If this were a garment that I wanted to last, if this was a garment that was going to get repeated washes, if this was anything other than a novelty Christmas apron for a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old that probably won't even fit next year, I would definitely pre-wash and pre-press my fabric. However, it's not that serious. So, I took very simple measurements for this. It's all rectangles. I did a longer rectangle for the skirt part of the apron, a smaller rectangle about half the size of the skirt for the bib part of the apron, and then I did the longest that I could get out of the fabric rectangles for the waistbands. One thing I forgot to cut at this point are the straps, but you will see those later, and again, it's just long, skinny rectangles. So I am doing my aprons out of these two different Walmart prints, and what I'm going to do is mix the waistbands and straps. So I'm going to use the waistband and straps from one on the other, because I thought it would be cute and also that it would coordinate them into a set, quote unquote. Once your fabric is cut out, it is time to sew. This project goes so quickly. So for me, I use pins liberally. I am a big fan of pins. Even though stopping to pull them out of the fabric as you're sewing takes time, I strongly recommend the liberal use of pins. So here you see me pinning the pieces together. I start by putting a pin in the center of the bib and a pin through the center of the waistband so I can mark up the middles. Because I didn't pre-wash my fabric, there are creases in the middle of what would be the skirt piece that I can match to the middle of the waistband. I cut 2 waistband pieces so that I could sandwich the top edge of the skirt and the bottom edge of the bib in between them. So you'll see me doing that. And I will sew the both pieces of the waistband on the bib, and I will sew one side of the skirt to the waistband. When I move on to a step later, I will just cover that raw edge with the other waistband. You'll see. Because we are not complete savages, we do clip corners and trim seams after we sew. We may not pre-wash, but we definitely trim seams. Coffee break. Okay, after the acquisition of coffee, we move on to pressing seams because, as previously stated, we are upstanding sewists around here. And pressing seams is so important to get nice, clean, well managed sewing projects. It just makes everything look better. This is coming from someone who didn't think pressing seams meant anything. I have seen for myself firsthand the difference it can make in the quality of your project, in basically all aspects of professionalism in a project. So trust me, press the seams. Press them flat the way they are when they come off the sewing machine first, and then I would suggest pressing them open, and then in this case, because we're turning it, so cover the raw edges, press it that way also. And then once I get done with that, I press up the raw edge on the waistband and the skirt so that it is encased, and after I've pressed it, I pin it together. And then I can take that to the sewing machine for the top stitching. And I do this for both of the aprons. So you may at this point be wondering, what are you going to do with the raw edges on the sides of the bib and skirt? To which I would say, good question. Yes. Now, if I had been smart, I would have hemmed those before I sewed them onto the waistband. However, in my defense, it was 2 a.m. and I hadn't had coffee yet. So, what I had to do was unpick the seams to those points. I measured how wide I wanted my hems to be. On the sides, I did 1/2 inch. On the top on the top of the bib and the bottom of the skirt, I did an inch. I turned those under. Like I said, I had unpicked the seam so I could turn it where I needed it to. Then I pinned it down. Then I sewed those hems around the bib and around the skirt with a very short seam, like a very short stitch length, because I think that looks better for visible top stitching. And I top stitched around those, and I top stitched around the waistband to, I guess, give cohesion, because generally I don't like visible top stitching, but I think if you're going to do it, in this case I did have to do it since there's no lining. So I think if you're going to do visible top stitching, you should fully commit to it. Now it's time for those straps I mentioned. As I stated before, they were cut from contrast fabric at 3 inches wide, 17 inches long, super simple, and I just turned them in half, stitched up the long side and one short side to make it easier for turning. Then, like everything else, press, turn right side out, turn in the side that you left open, and because I was doing the visible top stitching thing, top stitched around all 4 sides. If you weren't going for visible top stitching, you could close them with a hand sewn stitch, but like I said, if you're doing top stitching, my opinion is you should lean into it. Once those were done, I attached them to the front bibs of the aprons. I put them about a 1/2 inch from the edge on each side and about 5 inches down from the top of the apron. And to sew them in place, that's kind of a bar tag. I bar tagged them at the top with a very narrow zigzag stitch with a 0 stitch length so that it was just a back and forth stitch on top of itself. Then I did the widest zigzag stitch I could across the 3 sides that were connected to the apron. I didn't want to, what I could have done and didn't want to do was top stitch it on. However, I had already done the visible top stitching and I didn't think I was going to be able to cleanly and accurately stitch in the ditch, basically over stitch the top stitching I had already done. Like I said, it was 2 a.m. I was not firing on all cylinders, but I wanted these to be cute and I wanted them to be done. So that's what I did. And I think it was a nice effect. I think it turned out nicely. And all that's left is to deal with the leftover threads. I chose to just clip them off, but what you could also do is thread them through a sewing needle and tuck them into, the hem of the bib and skirt or into the tube of the waistband or straps. It's really personal preference. I was going for simple and it looks just as clean. And those are my 2020 holiday aprons. Aren't they cute? I think for a one night project that kind of came up spur of the moment, that they turned out so well. If you agree, consider giving this video a like. Subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos like this from me, and ring the notification bell to be notified every time I post a video on this channel. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And you stay cute. Merry Christmas, guys.